Call the roll, please.
Trustee Healy? Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Trustee Lawrence? Here. Trustee Waller?
Here.
Trustee Leaflet?
Here.
And Mayor Dodge.
Here.
Okay. It's 6:01. Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You should put on your microphone so people can hear you on the recording. The red button means you're on.
Okay. Approval of the May 19th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of May 19th, 2025.
I second.
This motion is second. Any corrections to the minutes? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy, Trustee Katsinas,
Aye.
Trustee Malani,
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence,
Aye.
Trustee Lawler,
Aye.
Trustee Leafblad,
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Non-scheduled citizens and visitor for agenda-specific public comment.
Mr. Terry, Mr. Kamadika. How are you, Terry?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. It's an
Could-
honor to be able to see you up here.
Could you please
My
tell
name
us?
is Terrence Kamadeka. I reside in Orland Park, Illinois, 1113 Wisconsin Court.
Is that microphone?
And I just wanted to say how much of an honor it is to see you up at that desk. I recently attended the graduation ceremonies of Lockport Township High School. Saw a lot of students.
I'm sorry. Could you please speak right into the microphone so I can hear you better?
All right. Can you hear me? Hello? Check, check.
That's better. Thanks, Terry.
All right, so I recently attended the graduation of Lockport Township High School. It's quite an honor to see all of those young people get their diplomas. And one of the things that they said is that after they get their graduation diploma and they feel the high of getting that diploma, there's a certain emptiness that they'll feel inside because they want to be able to pursue new avenues and new horizons. And a lot of times, these high school students will go on to college, some will go on to trade school, some will go on to the military to pursue a 6-year tour of duty so they can get the GI Bill, so that they can get a college education. And I just wanted to say that they have a lot of hope inside of them. A lot of times I'll see these young people look down at their cell phones, watching TikTok videos, but every once in a while they'll look up at the horizon and they'll say, you know, I'm capable of a lot of things, and I want to do a lot of things. And so I just want to say that I'm here to help the students, the high school graduates of whatever high school they graduate from, to pursue new avenues and new horizons. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to find avenues for them. I think one of the best avenues is through the act of volunteerism. And one thing that I have learned from the Orland Park Food Pantry is that there is so much need at that Orland Park Food Pantry to feed people. And I'm hoping that these students will embrace that. And it's just something I think that would be great to do. I've done it before in the past, and I'd like to see more of it in the future. And I'm here to help in any way I can. And that's basically all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thanks,
All right.
Mr. Kamadika. Well, we've got two other citizens.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm not on the list.
That's right. Just identify yourself.
My name is Matt Lulich. I live on 88th Avenue. I'm waiting for the admonishment that I only have 3 minutes to speak, which I've been greeted with the past few times that I've come to address the village board. I want to make some comments about the civility resolution.
Mm-hmm.
I would urge you to table it. Yeah, for a few reasons. The main one being is I think that it brings some attention to the village that maybe not for the best reasons. I would say from experience that the source of a lot of condescension, disrespect, needing to have the last wordism, it's no longer here. And I think that the people have spoken, the voters have spoken about what they think about civility and the way their public officials should act and the way they should be treated by their public officials. And to me, bringing up this resolution at this time, it's just, I just think it's adding some politics that aren't really necessary. Again, I think that the voters have spoken. I think that I would hope that everybody can move on for the good of the village and try to keep things civil. I don't think that any of you, and I really don't know any of you personally, have the ability to conduct yourselves the way that public officials should conduct themselves. And that we don't need any rules or regulations and a bunch of debate and back and forth and competing versions and things like that, in my opinion. So that's my 2 cents, and please take it for what it's worth. Thank you.
And I appreciate your comments. Joni, do you want to address the board now, Joni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board, can you hear me?
Just please identify yourself again for Joanna.
Okay,
Thank you.
so it's Joni Radishewski. Joanna, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm here this evening to address the last item on the agenda, which is entitled Question. It's actually a letter from Trustee Healy to the village manager, George Kaswara, requesting that he ask the village attorney, Dennis Walsh, to do a review of Mayor Dodge's relationship with Millman Advanced Analytics Insurance Broker. I'm sure you'll discuss the details at a later date. But here's my concern. In response to Trustee Healy's request, Trustee Lawler provided a 4-page letter where he too asked several questions, and one of them is why I did not fill out a conflict of interest form for the village, since I have a relationship with somebody who works for the current insurance broker. So I'm here this evening to answer that question. I inquired with the village attorney, Mr. Dennis Walsh, sitting right there next to you, who advised me that I did not have a conflict of interest, as Paul is not the broker for the insurance contract, any of the contracts for the village. He does not receive compensation for them, nor do I. Therefore, by the advisement of the village attorney, who I view as a very trusted advisor, I was able to vote on that contract. So there is no conflict of interest. I also wanted to comment on the civility policy. And sir, I do agree with what he has to say, that I don't think that it's really necessary, but there was so much mudslinging during the campaign, and it gets really ugly, and I could see why, you would want to do that. I always worked on a very cohesive board. We're always professional to one another. And it upsets me because last month you asked me to be here and you thanked me for being here. So that way you can have a quorum, so you can start your meeting. And I'm with open arms, welcoming the new board to be here. And, the very next month, not questioning my integrity. I served my community with pride, and I served with integrity. Please don't take that away from me. Thank you for your time.
Is it Paul Shahian? Did I get that right?
Mayor Dodge's Street Esteem Board. And Joanna, hopefully you can hear me as well. A microphone is usually something people have said I've not needed in my life. Okay, very good, very good. No notes, just in my brain. By the way, Joni, thank you for coming up and being courageous in your comments. I do second those, obviously. I just want to talk about the civility. I do respect what the gentleman here to my back and right said, but I do have one amendment to make to that, and then unfortunately the mudslinging hasn't stopped. We have a board member up here who's still getting threats of texts and to resign or else. We are still getting emails, or I should say social media posts, that's saying a certain ethnic group has no business being here. And as an Arab American, I'm really pissed off about that. There is mudslinging still going on about Mayor Dodge. There was a post not too long ago after the request to change the Taste of Orland location, mudslinging Mayor Dodge. And even though I admit I was a supporter of the former mayor, I told him to take it down. I thought it was classless. Archaic, outdated, classless. But he didn't take it down. There's mudslinging on both sides. It's not just one or the other. It's hate speech. Freedom of speech is fine. Hate speech is wrong. Hate speech is what causes everything that's happening in the Middle East. Hate speech is what causes everything going on in our Ivy League colleges. Hate speech is what caused the murders and killings over the weekend in Gaza. And hate speech is what caused so many Jews to lose their lives on October 7th 2 years ago. And hate speech is what caused the headlines in Boulder, Colorado over the weekend. It has no place. Either side, it has no place. So if you want to do a civility resolution, that is fine. Make it count. I would ask this board tonight to fully condemn all hate speech that has happened before, during, and after, because it's still going on. It's still going on. Make it count. Not only today, but tomorrow, but in the next election cycle, because that's where the nastiness really hits the road. The British have a term. They say, arrest the rot. I ask this board to immediately condemn all hate speech and arrest the rot. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. We will move forward with the agenda. This item is at the tail end of this agenda. Next item, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I would like to make an amendment. I would like to move to amend, wow, let me see if I can get that out. Move to amend the agenda for tonight and move item number 6 after item number 7.
Is there any objections?
I need a second.
All right.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objections, any concerns? Okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy, Trustee Katsinas,
Aye.
Trustee Malani,
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence. Aye. Trustee Lawler,
Aye.
Trustee Leafblad,
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye. Thank you. No worries. Ready? Next item. Yep.
Next item will be Public Works Optimization Project Update for discussion only.
Just George and Joel, there's a lot here. I think some of the current trustees know this, but let's kind of go back through this. There's a couple open questions, so floor is yours.
And I'll turn it over to Joel here in a second. First off, Joel created that beautiful mock-up himself, and it's actually going to help pretty well on an explanation of the project. This has been a project that's been in the works for some time. Joel and his team and other elements of the village have done a number of assessments throughout the village to capture really our capital programs and where we are, where we need to be in the future. As part of a facility assessment that was done a few years back, The recommendation was for the Public Works site optimization. And Joel will kind of go in through the details of that. So, Joel, if you would, please.
Thank you, George. Mayor, trustees,
Joe, microphone.
yes, real close, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to brief today the Public Work Optimization Project. Our goal tonight is to brief you on all aspects of the project, and then with your approval, we will go to be able to take this to the Planning Commission, which is tomorrow night. So with that, I listed a couple of things about what we're going to kind of go through tonight, and that's, I'll go through the slides now. So why the project? George talked about the assessments. This was done in 2021, and then we also did the fleet assessment as well at approximately the same time as that. And that created the framework where we put together the capital plan. In the capital plan, this project was determined to fall once the range was completed because the range is a piece of the puzzle piece at the Public Works. So the assessments talked about reducing our inventory, older buildings, our high maintenance facilities. So we identified a couple buildings that we would reduce our inventory through this process. We also looked at consolidating our storage. We have several locations, predominantly in some rec department areas that can be pulled back into Public Works. And then that area could be utilized for recs. Programs and storage. They do need some storage for their programs. So we also, I talked about the fleet assessment. We want to protect our vehicles. When the vehicles are outdoors, they do, their lifespan is reduced. That increases our cost for maintenance, and that includes equipment as well. And severe weather, if we had like a hailstorm that came through about a year ago, would have damaged our vehicles. And then we would have millions and millions of dollars of vehicles having to be replaced. So we are addressing the all-weather storage to help with that. Also, we have an older building that's part of the site. It has an older outer shell. We can utilize that building for the storage and our workshop area, so that can improve that building. We also are maximizing a vacant lot. It's a triangle shape in the back of the Public Works area, currently dirt, and we can utilize that space for part of the optimization, and I'll talk through that as well. Also, our salt storage area. We are increasing our salt capacity through this process, but we also are trying to reduce our salt usage because it's an EPA rule. So I'm trying to use brine on roads. So we do have a little bit larger facility in case the village does expand with development in farmland areas. But that salt storage is designed with that capacity to slightly increase to accommodate that. Go ahead.
Joe, just a quick question. That was my main question when we looked at this. And for everybody who hasn't seen it, you definitely need to see this model up here that the team built. There's approximately 1,500, 2,000 acres of undeveloped land that could come into Orland Park or already is in Orland Park. This 30 years, is this a big enough building for the next 30 years, at least on salt storage?
Yes, definitely on salt storage. We also have vehicle bays. Vehicle we designed for 10% over what we currently have, and we have the capacity, so I call it 10% plus, because we have some aisle spaces that we can utilize. Once some of the vehicles are parked, you can also park in the aisles and launch out with the aisles. So it would accommodate additional salt routes into those areas for winter operations.
And obviously the gear to go along with it. You've done some projection into the not very far future, but
Correct.
we're going to grow.
Yes.
So that's accounted for.
Yes.
Those are my main questions. Thank you, Joe.
The existing building was designed back in 1993 for a certain size village. Obviously, we've grown for the past 30 years, and we're going to most likely grow some more. And so we accommodated that in the design. And the last piece is the restroom and locker area. We initially were just utilities and streets, but facilities came into the fold, and then we also had parks, part of parks come into the fold. So we actually have, our staff has migrated to Public Works, and we have lockers everywhere, but not always in the locker room. So, so this project will accommodate that. Plus the growth too, for in case we have a couple of extra people. All right, that's the why. This is the look. It matches kind of like what we currently have. To the left, I'll show you in the next slide how it ties in with everything. We're really not trying to change the look. We're trying to match. And so here's a good kind of representation. In 1960, to the right is the old Public Works building. This was old Army base, and so in 1993, we took ownership of some of the Army base, and we have expanded in 1993. There's a rendering right there of 1993, and it has it foreshadows kind of what the design looks like as well in our design as well. That entire bay area was not fully built. Only about half of it. So, you know, why build the other half, wait 30 years later, then build the other half? And so in 2026, we'll be adding on the larger bay vehicle area to the left. So the site, here's an overall site layout, and I'm going to kind of go through the steps of what we're going to do with the project, but that's the overall plan for the site at the end. So first phase would be building a salt and brine building in the back dirt area that I described. So this is the brine. Salt building. That will go in the back. Okay, so the brine building will be in the back of the Public Works, kind of away from the front of the building. It's also where the salt storage will be. This building is actually a wood structure on the inside, so it will be corrosive, non-corrosive to the salt. We currently have a current building that the joists are starting to pit and starting to rust inside, so because of salt corrosiveness. Also, the brine operation currently is an old Army area building, but we don't have if a tank ruptures, we don't have a spill containment. So this building has that in there so we can protect the environment. And so the building will have that. We're also utilizing brine more so the vehicles can come pull up and they can fill up with salt or brine right along the edge and then proceed outside the area. Next phase. So once this building, we'll get rid of the Army building. We'll get rid of the old range. Sorry, the trees are gone.
Joel, I hope you know that the folks in planning and engineering are kind of jealous of your modeling capabilities, so George might make this a new standard.
No, well. And also the old salt will go away. So those three areas. Now, this demo will happen after the new building is because we have to move all the operations into the salt and brine building. Oop. The last phase is we're creating that bay similar to this photo. So that bay, the northern bay area gets built. The vehicles, if there's some parking in here, will go into this area, plus all the other vehicles around the site and the equipment. And then this building will be renovated inside for the storage and the blue area, storage and the shop space. So we through this 2-year process of design, we wanted to make sure we had good numbers. So we actually hired Harbor as a construction person, company, right, to actually help us and the A&E with good construction numbers. So this is kind of the layout of the project right now. Right now, it's in the capital plan for 25-26, but with us doing this late summer now. We'll probably have to spread that over 3 years, and we'll work through the capital plan with you on good numbers for, it'll probably be 25, 26, and partial 27. One of the things that we highlight is they estimated through a general contractor method. There's other methods out there called construction manager method. They could reduce some of their profit fees if we go that route, but right now we estimated it as a general contractor. We'd put it on the street, get bids. After the planning commission brings back, we would do that effort, and then you'll have final numbers for the project. We also noted that we identified, let's see, sorry, very finicky. I skipped the slide, sorry. So, sorry, Valdez, we had some costs for the Valdez and Harbor who did the estimating, but we identified motor fuel tax for part of the construction for the salt shed. That is allowed to utilize those funds. The state allows that. So we identified that after the capital improvement late fall last year. Also, we did get Valdez's proposals. So the 350 plus 700 can be reduced based on that proposal already received from them. Sorry. And then, sorry, this is the other side. So roughly 17.5 is what we're looking at right now. Sorry about that jumping around. We did, through the process, always try to keep the project down for cost, right? So we eliminated some things. We thought about doing the roofs, but it was in our capital plan in out years, but it was just too much for the project. So those kind of things, all-purpose room, we'll evaluate the mezzanine as well. And then we looked at value engineering, different ways to bringing different designs into this design. Those are listed. And then we're looking at some self-performing, whether it's contract or in-house work that we can do. Project timeline, we talked about the stars. Part of it is the bonding effort. We'll work through that with the capital program as we work through that. And then we would post this, because IDOT is helping us with MFT, we'll post it on their website to direct people to come bid at us on our website, our project. And then if all goes well, once we get all the documents together, the pricing come in great, that's my goal, then we can have construction start in the fall and into 27. If there's any questions, again, tonight we're looking for your decision so we can go to the Planning Commission.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I was out at Public Works and got an early view of what was presented here tonight. Had a little further discussion. It makes a lot of sense, the things they're doing, the way they're proposing to do them. I'm impressed overall. They didn't give me a sneak preview of this model, however.
We were hiding it now.
Yes, so it looks like good work.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani?
Thank you for continuing to look at ways to keep the costs down. I mean, I think that's kind of, very key here, but, I think this is going to give you guys room to expand. I mean, I've been in that building a number of times. I know the situation over there, and I know the lack of storage, and you're going to have to deal with all the stuff coming from Parks and Rec here soon, so you're going to be out of space, right? So, I mean, I totally understand this. I do like the Lego tour. I think this was helpful to visualize things. I didn't see where the covered up missile silos were when you moved the buildings around, so you missed a little detail.
I did. Sorry. Yes, there's 3 missile silos on the site that we're avoiding. One is right near a wall. We're putting a beam across it so we don't touch it. So,
Those were Nike missile sites at one
yes,
point.
Nike missiles. They were to protect Chicagoland.
Yes.
From Cold War
Who would have known that Orland Park was on a map hidden away somewhere? Yeah. But, no, thank you, though. This was a good presentation. Appreciate it.
Any other comments? Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Lawler.
Joel, I think the plan looks great. I too love the model. I think you really kind of really portrayed how you guys are going to expand things. I unfortunately have not had a chance to tour the site yet, but would love to go out there and see it. But yeah, no, I'm all for this project if it's gonna, as we continue to grow, which hopefully Orland Park will over the next 5 years. So, I appreciate all the work you did.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. I think we got a scheduled tour coming up, so
We do. Thank you.
get you out.
If no other comments, question for Joel or for George. How long are the bonds? What are we planning? 15, 20? How long are the bonds?
Typically, we do 20-year bonds.
Okay. And it seems to me like, just got it, you guys have anticipated the needs over the likely 20 years because we've got all that, so,
Yes.
Good. Thank you for doing that.
All right. Yes.
And just to reiterate something that Joel mentioned was the consolidation. We have facilities, for example, which is under the responsibility of Public Works now, has buildings and storage throughout the community. Old Village Hall, the basement of this Village Hall, and a number of other locations. So there's going to be a consolidation that's going to help also with inventory control. Just making sure that we know where everything is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
We'll proceed to Centennial Park West Facility Improvement Project revised.
George? Or is this also Joel?
This is the Joel show. So the next item, Joel can just kind of give a summary of the de-scoping that's being proposed.
Okay, so we did, when we put the budget together, we looked at some life safety issues that we identified and put it in the budget. Those items were both staff and residents' concerns. And so at CPW, we put that package together. We also had the screens that Ray was going to order. We put them together in one contract. So tonight, the life safety that we're recommending is still the water fountains for us to fill up bottled water, plus people can come up to them. We're opening up one of the gates a little bit wider. We had an incident where we had to get an ambulance kind of into the area. It's very tight for it. They can get through, but it's like they have to drive real slow, and most ambulances don't like doing that. But we widened the gate. We also looked at the west gate area to utilize another personnel gate so that flow for people to come in could be faster with the metal detectors. And so we ran power. We'll be running power, to the west gate and also the north gate area to help with the screening, both for metal detectors and the tents. And then the fence will be adjusted on the west side to allow that second gate to be operational with some concrete work there too, because they would walk across grass and we just get that so that people don't have to walk through the grass. So that's really the scope as you can see it tonight. We took out the screens by direction.
Discussion from the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, I see that we're still amending this, and
Hang it, John, hang for one. So Dennis, typically there's, you can choose to put a motion first before you have discussion, or you could take discussion, then do the motion.
Talk to staff if you have questions for staff without doing a motion.
So current set of rules, we prefer a motion on the floor. All right, well, we're going to change that at some point. There's, let's have a motion then.
you want to make the motion?
Trustee Lawler?
That's it. Sorry, don't have mine. I have a different screen up. I move to recommend to the village board to approve participation in joint purchasing cooperative Omnia partners pursuant to contract 02-139 and authorize the approval and execution of vendor contract with Davcom Electric, Inc. for the Centennial Park West Facility Improvement Project based on Davcom Electric, Inc.'s revised proposal number 25-167-11/RQN, number 2025-1610, REV dated May 14, 2025, for $277,300, plus a $25,000 contingency for a total not to exceed contract price of $302,300.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Trustee Lawrence?
A second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, so I still have a lot of concerns with this. You know, one of the reasons why I ran for office was I was very unhappy with some of the things that the village was investing in. You know, particularly Centennial Park West. To this day, I still don't really know what the full cost of the complex was. And George, I would like to see all the costs, you know, from soft costs, hard costs, everything, to really find out what it costs for this complex to be built. I would still like to see also, was asking a question, George, was a business plan ever done for this project?
No.
So we invested a lot of money with no business plan. And, you know, just on the concerts alone, I think last week, the last board meeting, we learned that we're going to lose $537,800. That's not even counting the cost of what it costs to build, bonded out over 20 years. And we did this without a business plan. So before we spend any more money, I would like to see a business plan generated to see how we can stop the loss from this amenity. You know, it's an amenity, in my opinion, is something that's going to provide a lot of benefit to the Village of Orland Park residents. And, you know, I think we heard what the number of concert goers was, and we don't even know how many of them were, you know, from Orland Park, you know, maybe 50%. It's a lot of money to be spending for a losing venture every year, and I just don't think that we should be subsidizing, you know, $537,000 on concerts. So I would like to move forward with it, you know, and see if we can create a business plan, create a better alternative use for it to see, you know, what can we do with it in the future so we can minimize the losses that we are suffering on it right now.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Bellotti?
I don't even know if I want to head down the road of the business plan, but we do subsidize 52% of all of our other recreational offerings. And I think the last time we talked about this, this is a 53% gap, right? So we're in line with all of our other practices and all of our other events that we have. As far as a business plan goes, I think the reason why is because we're always looking at this as an amenity to our residents, not building a business like we've done with a failing fitness center that we have right down the street. Right, so we've gone into businesses before, and this is not a business, and it was never intended to be a business. But I'll move on to the actual topic for tonight, which is the improvements, not the history. So what we're doing here is adding amenities that the residents asked for to make it better for them, and we're offering those, and we're giving them to them, which is great, because we identified these last year as things that we wanted to improve on. I do have a couple questions about the removal of the video wall and how we're planning on renting these. So we're going to be removing these. Who should I redirect my questions?
You can, I'll handle it, and
Okay,
then I'll...
so we'll be removing the screens, but it also says we'll be removing the structure, the power, and the lifting equipment as well. Correct?
For the screens.
Yes. So we'll plan to rent screens. How will these screens be installed every time if they have no power?
Yeah, so, and Ray can jump in. We've actually done this, if you recall, when we did previous concerts. The one year when the CPW was actually being built, we did the concert in the parking lot. We actually had, we rented a couple of those screens. And Ray, how did they get power to it?
They're self-powered with generators, so they're screens that are on trailers, so they're trailer mounted and they raise up in the air.
So would they be similar to the same size that we were going to put up?
They'd be slightly smaller.
Okay, so about how much will these cost us to rent and install each time for each concert?
They're about $15,000 each use.
15 or 50?
15.
15, okay. 15 per concert. And how many concerts would we do per year?
3.
3, so $45,000. Let me do some ocular math here really quick. So in about 13 years, we'll spend just as much as we would have if we would have put the screens up.
So 13, you're saying it's a 13-year return on investment?
Yes, but it's an investment we'd be putting into our infrastructure permanently and not needing to go out to find these every time we need them. And we'd have the large ones like we wanted. So I was just trying to figure out, where we actually saw cost savings. I mean, because I believe the lifespan on these were about 15 years they gave us, plus or minus.
About that.
So there's really no difference whether we put permanent structures in or rent them. So what are we saving?
Initial capital costs.
The initial capital costs that we had already budgeted for.
That's correct. And this is obviously a policy direction,
Right. I'm just trying to paint the picture and understand everything because I'm just trying to figure out why we're taking these out. So those are the questions I have. Thank you for answering. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
and just to make a point, they're $15,000 now. What will they be in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years? So I highly doubt that it would stay at 15 because a lot of it is some labor cost involved to actually put up the structure.
The $15,000 is just for the screens themselves, so there wouldn't be any labor for the screens on the trailers. There is additional cost to operate the camera equipment and rent the cameras.
So what would you say the total cost is? Manpower, screens,
I think
cameras?
it's probably out $20,000 per use.
20.
That's just 20, yeah, that's
On
a
the
guess. I
average.
would have to get quotes.
Okay. With the assumption that more than likely it's going to go up. Nobody
Labor always
stays the
goes up,
same,
sure,
right? As we well know if you go to the grocery store.
Right.
Thank you, Ray.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Trustee Lawler?
George, so we're looking at, if we took those video walls off, $600,000, something along those lines, $700,000. What are current bond rates over a 20-year period for municipal bonds?
I actually haven't looked at that in quite some time. I'm going to, Chris, any idea? No, we're about to get into those discussions. I'm going to guess 4%. I don't know.
4%?
Yeah.
Okay. So we would also have that savings of not outlining the initial capital cost of close to $700,000 at 4% interest, which is roughly somewhere around the range of $28,000 to probably $35,000 if we're paying the bond off, correct?
That sounds right.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also mention that the rental of those screens, it doesn't mean we're going to rent them for every concert. We have one concert that requires the rental of the screens via rider, but it doesn't mean that we have to rent the screens for every concert.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I see us not purchasing these today as giving us an option for the future. Our option being that we may have concerts of a different sort of character that might not require them. And in addition, if we're headed to a recession, this protects us a little bit from a financial perspective. Hard to say, but what's going on in Washington Looks like potentially we could be headed toward a recession, maybe could last a number of years. Hopefully not, certainly, but this does give us the option for the future to decide what kind of concerts we want, what we want to do out there, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Trustee Leafblad? Yeah, trustee Leafblad.
I would really consider avoiding paying, $1 million at a time to be in advance, because hopefully we'll learn contracts in the future dollars, but not as a even don't require. Hopefully we don't require us to spend another significant amount of money to accommodate the performer in the same manner as this particular one does. So, these are not things that we absolutely need in order to make that state function. And I think that's a saving for the city.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Before we call the roll, just a couple of very simple comments. One, there's obviously very different opinions about the future of this facility, which we will keep before this board in some way, shape, or form to debate what we're going to be doing with it going forward. Mike, I'm going to take your phrase, a little ocular math. I'd rather spend 15 or 20 grand now to save 700,000 while, as a board, we are debating this concert venue's future. And so with that, it's a pretty straightforward question. I'm glad staff found options to bring back what we'll call life safety issues, not the least of which is expanding the gates for easier access with ambulances. So with that, there's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler.
Nay.
Great.
Trustee Lawrence.
You're voting to approve this.
No, I'm voting against it.
Okay.
At this time.
Trustee Lawrence.
Yay.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Leafblad.
Aye.
Trustee Healy, not present. Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Carries. All right.
Okay, number 3, Stormwater Detention Basin Maintenance Program Comprehensive Update for discussion only.
So this is to continue the Joel show. Joel is going to just, there's been a lot of effort put in the last couple of years, similar to what we're doing with the facilities. We've done a number of assessments on the stormwater detention basins. We refer to them colloquially as ponds. And Joel's just going to kind of go over all of the efforts that Public Works has undertaken and kind of talk about how this looks going forward.
Good evening again. So our stormwater detention basin maintenance program, I just start with, there's 3 parts in this brief. I'll try to move as quickly as possible. Some of you have seen this before as well. So part 1 is kind of an overview. I don't know if you guys all know that we have 7 main watersheds in the village. You can kind of see the water flow with the yellow arrows, and this watershed creeks that take the water away from Orland Park and get to the Calsag or the Hickory Creek, and then getting to the Des Plaines River. Through this storm system, it goes through many different types. There's lakes, sloughs, creeks, piping, detention basins. Those can be dry or wet. Some of them is public, some is private. And so you've maybe heard about Tinley Creek. That's a private owned creek because the creek runs through it. So it's really about an interlocking conveyance system between public and private entities. So we all have to work together and to allow the water to shed out of Orland. So a lot of times people see ponds as a water feature. It's really, the purpose is for storm detention to allow the water to slowly get to the creeks, so we don't impact the creeks and damage the creeks, which then causes extra work to fix those. Also, for new development, ponds are generally, were put out for privately maintained by the HOAs for going forward. There are some that are not because there's grandfather. The first question maybe comes to your mind is, what's the village's flooding condition, right? If you talk about storm, what have we been doing? So we actually, we did a lot of work in early 2000s, but over the past couple years, we have been improving our storm through projects. I listed a whole bunch on the list. I'm not gonna read through them all. We have 3 main concern areas still, but they're on Cook County and IDOT road locations highlighted in the red boxes. So what do we do in Public Works? Well, the storm piping inlets are done by our in-house staff. Storm responses, we always are responding after this for debris leaves blocking inlets. I like to have major storms during the winter because we don't have leaves, because the inlets don't get blocked. But we don't always get that chance. So we do monitor some areas that are troublesome, and we always check those areas to make sure that they're not blocked. So we're looking at creeks, looking for blockages, because if the creeks block up, then everything upstream kind of starts to flood. So we also are looking at the sediment of many of the creeks. It's starting to have a lot of sediment in those creeks. And then detention ponds. So this is what George talked about. We did evaluations, and we have stewardships of those. And then lastly, we're looking at dredging. Dredging is the most expensive, but some of the ponds need it, and we're looking those down the road. I did not have it in the water rates, so I won't look at dredging until really getting into the 2027 timeframe, where it would be part of the, because storm is part of the utilities, and that's paid by water rates. So our first phase was a public evaluation of all our ponds, and this back in 2021. So obviously we have to do this for MWRD. They give us the permits for that. We looked at 178 basins inspected, looking at a variety of elements, and then this spit out an 800-page report on all the ponds for us. And that gave us the criteria to what we need to fix. It was presented in 2022 for the board. I noted those kind of things that did not get evaluated in the report. So this is the kind of the report that comes out of it. Every pond got a sheet, and then we looked at, we rated them. And in some cases, we saw a lot of degradation of sediment and so forth. And so when we rated them, we looked at 5 as being worst, 1 being the best, and then we attacked the 5s and the 4s with the stewardships, which I'm going to talk about. So after that, we did that, we said, you know what, we have a lot of those private entities. Those ponds need to be evaluated. So in June of 2022, we did evaluation of the private. Now, the same kind of evaluation that we did before, similar scoring system, 5s being the worst. We saw common issues, sediment, overgrown vegetation. The one difference is we don't own it. It's a private. So there had to be a communication plan that we put together to reach out to the folks and talk about their ponds. Unlike our public ones, where we attacked it, where all our 5s are addressed, all our 4s are addressed, most of our 3s, I would say there's only a couple 3s left, and we've even done a couple 2s and 1s because maybe a pond was next to another pond, and to just keep it even for the stewardships, we've actually started addressing those. Or simple things like there's algae, and we fight the algae blooms that come from fertilization. So, similar kind of rankings from 5 to 1. This one was much larger because we had to do a lot more ponds. And when I say ponds, there's wet and dry ones, obviously. So then we targeted anything in the 5s, we called them the group A letters. So this is the communication that we went to the private entities, and we let them know that, hey, your pond it's in bad condition. You're part of our system. You've got to work with us. And here's some ideas of how you can improve your ponds. This are the kind of things we're seeing so that they know what's going on. We got a mixed bag of back because some of the Cook County records is not the greatest. So we were still trying to chase after a couple of because some ponds are partially owned, right? You could have 5 people owning one pond. So there might be some missing. But the ones that did respond, which about over 50%, we had a very good response back from them. And a lot of them are starting to work on their ponds, which is great. Exactly what we were trying to do. So currently we have over 120 ponds that we have stewardships. They kind of graduate, as you can see, like, half, they'll graduate out of the program in a way to the main level of effort is the first year and the second year, and then they get into a stewardship kind of basic maintenance, make sure that it doesn't get too crazy out there. Yeah, so it kind of talked about that. We also did a lot of ponds. We went and did some shrub removal as a separate contract to kind of clean up a lot of the shrubs in 28 ponds. So what do we do currently? There's only a couple more slides, so bear with me. So obviously when you do urban development, it changes the landscape. It changes how fast the water gets to the creek. So therefore the ponds are made. It helps mitigate so we don't have flooding of homes and businesses. So the best practices actually was started in 2021, well before my time and a lot of folks, right? It's been 15 years that they've had this best practice. The mayor probably was still right here with that. So maybe he remembers that, but we started the best practices. It's a very good, what the goals are. It's good for the environment, helps filtrate the fertilizer, and it helps keep the edging intact so it doesn't slide into the pond. And that dredging I talked about, which is most expensive, doesn't have to happen then, right? We can avoid that. Riprap is an option, but we don't do that because it's very expensive, to put in, and then it does start to, degrade after time. So that was not our best practice. So eliminate, hard edges, put the native planting, costly. A lot of other organizations use the same method, and it protects the shoreline, and I kind of talked about a lot of that stuff. But you can see a photo of what it kind of looked like afterwards. Here's a before, after 2 years of work on the pond, the water quality is improved, and then the edging around the area. Again, our code requires 15 feet around, so it's all new development is following this best practice. So we're following that best practices. And that's it. Any questions on the ponds?
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Lawler?
Joel, do you get a lot of pushback from some of the subdivisions that own their ponds privately? I mean, are they resistant to doing it?
No. Generally, once you start the conversations, they know what they need to do if it's a private pond.
Okay.
It's sometimes a public pond where a subdivision may have grass all the way to the edge, but then there's erosion occurring, and people don't want their grass to be having that ring of protective best practice. That's the biggest one we have.
Any other comments or questions? Joel, thank you, right, but just to remind everybody, it's at least IDNR, Army Corps of Engineers, and Water Rec that have a say in these standards, correct?
Well, we determined the best practice, what we did in 2021, but they followed.
But the
same-
regulatory agencies
Recommended as well.
help guide our thinking, shall we say.
Definitely.
This is expensive, generally.
The stewardship is actually pretty inexpensive compared to the dredging.
It's
you know,
never ending.
But it's never ending.
And we still, to this day, I think you said we put this policy in place in 2011. There's still an issue of customer acceptance.
Correct.
And so I think that'll be part of the ongoing discussion for this board going forward, which is how do we get people to understand why we're doing what we're doing? And I think my experience has been a lot of residents in Orland don't necessarily associate what their pond is doing for the entirety of the system, which is in many ways dictated to us by the aforementioned Water Rec, IDNR, and Army Corps of Engineers. So I just want to put that in the record. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree, and we could do communication, working with the communication team on information about ponds.
Got it. Thank you. Next item.
Centennial Park West Alcoholic Beverage Sales / G10 Alcohol License Amendment.
George, do you want to give a brief overview of this, and then we'll ask for a motion?
Just real quickly, for the, this is a two-parter. For the Centennial Park West events, previously, it's village staff that has been responsible for selling alcohol at them. And what we found is that the businesses, the Orland Park businesses, could do this better than we can. This is what they do. So the first part is to allow us to reach out to the taste vendors that have alcohol sales licenses and offer them the opportunity to sell alcohol at our Centennial Park West events. And then the second part is to reduce the price for what we call our G10 temporary liquor license on village property. That's essentially it.
Any comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, really quickly, by letting another vendor sell alcohol, does that eliminates some of our liability too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's, exactly. All of our staff has to get Basin certified to do this. We have to devote staff to that, and it really goes in peaks, and so we have to staff for peaks. When we go and use the liquor license holders, this is their business. This is what they do. We're not in the business of alcohol sale.
Right. And this would also reduce the number of hours, let's say, recreation staff would have to work because they're working the tent?
Yeah, and our resources are better used overall and not being locked in a booth selling alcohol.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Trustee Leafledge? Okay. Trustee Milani, you want to be?
I have questions, but we still haven't made a motion. I don't.
You prefer to put the motion on the floor? It's up to you. No, he just brought it up. He just asked a question. So.
Sorry, I didn't read it. I will make the motion. Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
I move to recommend to the village board inviting restaurants that participate in taste and other vendors, if necessary, to vend alcoholic beverages at the Centennial Park West Concert Series and the 4th of July at a cost of $100, plus $1.25 for each alcoholic beverage sold, paid to the village, and to amend Ordinance Title 7, Chapter 4 of the Village Code to remove the Class G10 temporary liquor license fee paid to the village.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Milani?
just to make sure I understand. So we're trying to relieve staff of selling the alcohol, which I think is a benefit. They can do something else. But this then gives the vendors the opportunity to make some money, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, and we'll actually capture some revenue. I think it was like about $3,500 estimated. Have you polled any other vendors to see if they'll be interested in doing this?
What we're going to do is once we get direction from the board now, the first step is to go to the taste vendors, since they've already paid the taste fees. We want to give them first shot. And then if we don't feel like we have enough, then we're going to go further out to our remaining liquor license holders.
Right. And is this going to be for the events where we would allow liquor
Correct.
brought in as well?
Yep. So the concerts, even though residents are able to bring in their own food and alcohol, there is a brisk sale of liquor that happens
Right.
as the evening goes on.
Yep. People run out.
Mhm. They run out.
For sure. Okay, so I mean, this makes sense. Thank you.
Trustee Katsinas?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is directed to the acting chief there in the seat. Do you see any issue with that, just in monitoring the sales, especially with minors or wristbands? Do you see any added, caution that the police have to look at? Because assuming there's going to be more vendors selling. I don't know if the consumption's going to go up accordingly, but
I think that the businesses that we vet and we utilize in town with our normal checks and keeping them as vendors and monitoring their normal actions should not have an issue with them working at those events.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
just one more question. This would be picking a vendor per event, right? We wouldn't
No.
have several. Like
It would be several.
Okay. There
It
would be several.
It would be several, right.
So maybe if there's 4 people that have tents, 4 people could be selling liquor.
Yep, and that's an also a benefit, because when we only had a single tent, lines were blocking aisles. And so now, throughout the facility, there could be alcohol sales.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, when we brought this up, I thought it made sense to kind of support the original vision for this facility, which is more akin to Ravinia than not. And so I thought this is a useful change to put this back into the hands of local businesses. There's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler.
Yes.
Trustee Leaflet.
Aye.
Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence.
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Proceed to the Orland Park Civility Resolution.
George, you want to give a brief background on this, and then we'll open it up for a motion and discussion, given some of the comments we heard earlier from the citizens?
Sure. At the last village board meeting, a draft resolution for a civility resolution was placed on the agenda. That, and we'll call that the original version, because there's a number of versions. The original version was a combination of a civility resolution that the Illinois Municipal League created and a civility accord from the Council of Mayors. And so that was a combination. At that time, it was the consensus of the board to bring this discussion to the committee of the whole, so that the full board had an opportunity to provide additional comments regarding that resolution. So what you have before you now are a couple of versions. So the original one from 2 weeks ago, you have Malani version 1 is what I'm calling it. Malani version 2. So Malani version 1 was a markup of the original. Malani version 2 is kind of a fresh start. Then you have Ryan Norwell version, which is using Malani version 2 as the base with some additions. And then finally, we have the Lawrence version, which is tweaking the Ryan Norwell version. All of them using Malani version 2 as the base.
Trustee Leafblad.
Resolution, I move to recommend that the village board of trustees adopt an Orland Park civility resolution, and directed the copy of said resolution be displayed and on file in the location of the village hall.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the trustees?
And Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
thank you, George, for the recap of what I did. Yes, basically, I did propose two different changes. I found it to kind of be a little dry. It was very legal speak, and it almost felt negative reading it, so I felt that it had to be kind of rewritten. So I rewrote it in a more positive tone and sentiment and focused on really what we were talking about, which is true civility, right? And, while I do agree with our guests that say we don't need this, we don't. But I'm trying to give this the college try and do what's best and try to do what we can up here to get to the place we want to be, right? So one thing that I should have included in the version 2 that I didn't, and I captured this in my notes here, that in one of the last items we talk about we will, our elected officials pledge to sign the civility pledge and adhere to it in their official actions demonstrating a commitment to the civility that inspires other. I think we need to include in there to the best of our abilities, because we're all not perfect, right? We're all gonna say something every once in a while, but I think understanding that we're trying, just like we swore our oath up here, we're gonna do the best we can to the best of our abilities to uphold the Constitution of Illinois and uphold the Constitution of the United States, right? So we should, at the best of our abilities, be judged here as well.
Sorry.
One of the other things we took care of, there were some things that were pretty redundant. Looks like we've taken a lot of the thoughts around that and got rid of some of that. But there's a section called Section 1 here that says, I'm gonna read this, and if anybody understands exactly what this means within 2 seconds, raise your hand. The foregoing recitals shall be and are hereby incorporated as findings of fact, as if said recitals were fully set forth herein. Dennis, you're not included.
I think that's a question for the
You
lawyers.
got that. Okay, so we got one. Okay. I kind of needed a pocket translator almost to figure that one out. I know what it means, but other people may not understand. So I don't even know if that particular section needs to be in there.
Do we need it?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad,
I still have the floor.
I thought you, good one.
So I thought maybe that we could get away from that, because we're already agreeing that we're doing all these things. Why do we need something to say we're agreeing to these if we're going to be signing it? The other thing that keeps coming back is this statement on violence. If we're operating with gratitude, humility, propriety, and kindness, as well as being civil, what is the point of including a statement on violence? And we didn't really get into that conversation the last time we discussed the document, so I guess I'm wondering why that's in there, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone up here be violent. And again, we have a lot of changes here. I think this is something, let's talk about it, let's discuss this, let's come to a conclusion. However, I think this might have to go back one more time to have a final version of this and get a stamp of approval on it. I think before any of us would be happy to sign it. So, I would say after this conversation that we go back one more time, bring it all together, and then bring it back to the board for final approval. So.
Trustee Malani, you finished with your comments? Trustee Leafblad, did you want to be recognized?
Yes, I just wanted to add that when you're looking at the recitals at the beginning of the document, that all the sentences that you should really whereas, they do seem a bit formal, but I guess it's just part of the adoption of the resolution when we talk about the whereas, the one sentences are all of the reasons why, and not exhaustive. So there's a reason why we come together to adopt this resolution. So it's whereas, we adopt this. And so it just kind of sets out some of the process of why we get here. I don't think that we have to have violence in order to say that we don't support violence. I think this resolution is, that we have to worry about it in where we live. But I don't think that any of us, not the people and not the people, and not the members of the board, and not anybody at all will say that at any point that they would say violence was a good way to get a point across. So, what we're doing here, in adopting a resolution as a board, in an effort to show our commitment to working together and to being respectful and to our public and mindful of people's opinions. You know, it's not saying that, okay, we're all just going to agree on everything. It's not saying that somehow, if we have a violation, that we're writing violence into the village. It's simply a statement that we are here to teach you better, that the best version of ourselves in our efforts to carry out our roles, these roles that we have been elected to, for the benefit of Orland Park.
Any other comments or questions? Sorry, go ahead. Any other comments or questions? All right, I quest the question then for you, trustee Leafblad, and for trustee Lawler, since you were the mover and seconder. Trustee Milani brought up what I think is a good suggestion, which is to add, if I heard you right, trustee Milani, to the best of our ability at the end of the sentence in section 4. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Trustee Leafblad and Lawler, will you amend your motion to include that language, or do we need a separate motion, Mr. Walsh? If you'll amend the motion, we can include the words "to the best of our ability" at the end of the sentence in section 4.
Yeah, that's fine. Which version are we talking about? Are we talking about the line 2 version?
Correct. It would read, "Our elected officials pledge to sign the civility pledge." I've got the Lawrence. Sorry.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
I stand corrected. Hang on, let me get the right version.
We have too many versions now.
Yeah, but this is simple. We're going to get through this tonight. Our elected officials pledge to sign the civility pledge and adhere to it in their official actions, demonstrating commitment to civility that inspires others to the best of our abilities. Yep.
Yes, I would agree to that motion.
So you're amending your motion?
Yeah, I would amend my motion to include that.
Do you amend your second?
And I second that.
All right. If there's no further discussion, there's a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee,
I just want to say a couple of things before we go ahead and approve this. This is our second conversation about the civility pledge. Reason is because every board member on this board deserved a more than a rushed vote. The initial resolution was written by the mayor and village manager with really no input like we're doing now from the board members. So I appreciate the input. Additional language was inserted in the first one that raised my concerns about speech and compelled you or restricted speech. Initially, there was no collaboration or discussion prior to its introduction. It appears it was brought forward in a way to design to pressure members into supporting it, assuming no one would dare oppose something that was civil. But when we're talking about civility, there is a background and actions, I think, that matter. As for our village manager, it's kind of ironic. He just 2 meetings ago I had to request an executive session to ensure that the board was fully informed in inappropriate behavior involving him. Following that, the board came out and we voted to reappoint him with a significant increase. And now that individuals co-authoring and had input into our ordinance here. The village manager has been the subject of 2 formal investigations into appropriate conduct towards the village employee, first in 2021 and again in 2024. Both investigations confirmed the misconduct. The first resulted in a performance improvement plan and leadership training paid for by public funds. The second led to an additional training and a written warning. In December 2023, there were 2 additional memos were placed in his personnel file documenting further behavioral concerns. All of these records exist and are subject to FOIA. Somewhat of troubling inconsistencies for the standards outlined in this, the resolution and the conduct of those attempting to impose it.
Trustee Katsinas, how is this related to the civility?
Well, I'm getting here as elected officials, we swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Illinois. This protects the right of freedom of speech, honestly and directly, even if it's uncomfortable. So I appreciate the input on my fellow board members on this pledge. And it assumes almost that a problem exists right now that I really don't think it does, to the gentleman who stood up and spoke. I don't think we have a problem with people acting civil on the board. You know, to your point, might have happened previously, but I think if there is a problem, it's something we should address. Thank you.
Trustee Leafblad.
Thank you. I would just like to add, everything that was brought up on trustee Kitts has been addressed by your council, fully explored, and understood prior to anything of a resolution coming up, which is exactly how this is working together in a civil and professional manner should look.
Are there any further comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I would still like to move to return this back to the committee of the whole for one final glance at this to make sure that we have all of the verbiage in a row.
Second.
So the motion is to keep it in committee or defer it?
Yeah, I think just one more time, let's get final on this because, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani, we're at a committee of the whole, Mike. We don't need to be that formal.
No, I want to get this right. Right, and, I appreciate Trustee Lawrence and the clerk's input, which was the first time I think I've ever seen the clerk provide input on something we were deliberating on, so is that even something that we're supposed to do? Which I'm fine with it because I think it's, but I've never seen that happen before.
All right, there's a motion and a second to effectively table this?
No. I want to send this back to the committee of the whole and and that's the motion.
The item
Can you
is
clarify the
currently-
motion, Mr. Walsh?
The item is right now in the committee of the whole, so when I can refer it back, it would be a motion to table it to the next cow meeting.
Okay.
Or thereafter.
Okay, then I move to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, which takes priority to table. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Miller?
Trustee Leafblad? Trustee Leafblad, we cannot debate motions to table, so let's call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Nay.
Trustee Leafblat?
No.
Mayor Dodge?
No. Motion fails.
Motion passes.
All right, there's what's the word in Robert's rules? The immediate, yeah. We have an active motion and a second to adopt this as amended. Before we call that roll, I'd like to thank Trustee Malani for his thoughtful comments in rewriting this draft. And I appreciate the fact that Dina and Mary had some input. I appreciate the fact that we've had a healthy discussion with a lot of opinions tonight that were expressed about this. So that's exactly the way it should work. So with that, call the roll on the main motion to approve this.
Trustee Leafblat?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Katsinas?
No.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item is the student internship program.
Yes. Student internship program?
George, will you take us through this item?
Yeah, so we have a lot of very talented students in Orland Park, and we want to take advantage of that talent by rolling out an internship program. It's really to a couple of things. One is we want to train the next generation of public servants. The second is we want to give that next generation the opportunity to learn in a very great environment that we have here in Orland Park. And three is to actually get some for lack of a better term, labor. So it's a win-win. They're going to get experience, and then we will get some help in the various departments. So this is a paid internship, 19 hours per week, and it would be village-wide, different departments of the village.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
move to recommend to the village board to approve the creation of the student internship program and related policy. Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
some comments and questions. George, I remember back in '21 when we first approached this, unfortunately, we didn't move forward with it for several reasons. I think back then you, me, and the HR coordinator at the time had a long discussion on what an internship program needs. I've been involved for about 10 years or so with internship programs and developing interns and mentoring them. So I was definitely in favor of the project back then, but we needed some tuning. We gave you lots of valuable feedback, and I think in 2022, your assistant was working on some revisions at the time too. So this has got some history, which is good. Some of the things that we called out in the past that, we wanted to make sure that, interns had specific work plans that would be given them to make sure that they develop skills and learning opportunities specific to the respective departments they were in. And then dedicated mentoring, and this should be somebody in the department, and it's a must, not an option. They should have a dedicated mentor that they're learning from and working with to be able to participate. And it needs to be meaningful work. We talked about that. I think we want to provide an educational experience. We don't want this to just turn into a staff augmentation role where we put somebody in a room with a project and say, we'll come check on you in a week. We want to make sure that this is valuable for everybody. And I see now that you're kind of also mentioning flexibility, which means this could be a yearly position or just for the summer, depending on needs.
Correct, and depending on also availability.
And the needs of the student. Maybe they only have
Correct.
a summer internship program, some have a year-long. I believe the MPAs are a year-long internship.
Correct.
But a college graduate may only have a summer program. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's good as well. But what I also noticed is the success measures, there's several questions that mentors should be asking themselves, right? And one of the questions I think is, did I provide a valuable learning experience for my intern? And I think that if you can answer that question, the other questions just make sense, right? So I think, seeing that added in there. But I also think there needs to be a defined interview, ranking, and a selection process for the interns as well. And we also want to avoid hiring friends and family and neighbors. We want to make sure that we're getting good college recruits that are qualified, willing to learn, are going to put forth the effort that you're going to want. So I think that might be something that may be added into the proposal. But now if we keep the total cost in mind, $172,000. Now, we have another upcoming outreach coordinator conversation, which is why I moved the agenda items, which I don't believe it should be tied to that outreach coordinator, just for the fact of, I think, we have a bunch of people in the departments that want to be leaders. They want to be role models, they want to be mentors. We should be leveraging them instead of hiring a specific person to be an outreach coordinator. But we'll get to that when we talk to that. Because that's another $79,000 to $100,000 you'd be committing to this project. Again, and this is what we talked about last time, this came to us on a budget amendment, and this is first discussion, which is a good discussion, it's in the right place. But I think we should be looking at this, discussing it, molding it into exactly what we want, and then budget it for next year, and then the funds will be there versus doing a budget amendment. So I'd like to see this revised a bit and possibly be put back in the budget for next year. That's what I'd like to see before I can give a final approval on this, but I'm also happy to work with you on any plans you're looking to put together on this. If you want to work on a proposal or something, I'm happy to provide my input. Like I said, I've been doing this for a while, so I offer that assistance if this ends up coming back to be revised. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
I would just kind of like to piggyback on what Mike said. I agree with a lot of what he said. So it's got to be meaningful work, not just hire friends and family and stick them in an office somewhere. So, I'd like to see what Mike said put in that project.
Any other comments? Trustee Milani, thank you. Sorry, Joanna. Trustee Lawler, excuse me, Leaflight. Sorry.
Sorry, I have a little delay, I think, in when I come in. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for students to get additional experience in a field that they may be interested in, and that they're taking classes in to kind of see it in action. And I'm really grateful to see that we're bringing about these things about. So I think it's fantastic.
Any additional comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Milani?
So just to make sure the correct procedure here, if we wanted to send this back for some adjustments, like Trustee Lara is agreeing, there needs to be some adjustments here possibly. Would this be a motion to table then, just like we did? And so we'd have to table it.
You could table it. The alternative, Trustee Milani, was going to recommend to the board we approve this and then take into feedback what you've said and what Trustee Lawler agreed with, because there were thoughtful comments and I appreciate them. That can be baked into the future plan we go before. This is simply a referral to the board to approve the creation.
Okay.
I think those comments my intention is to make sure village manager understands those comments get infused into the program.
So we could approve it here at the committee and postpone it at the Board of
We're going to send it to
Trustees
the
and work
board
on-
while because I read it as approve the creation of it, but let's make sure that we keep editing the policy. That's the intention for tonight. Because I think your comments were thoughtful, Mike, in terms of, I think we both have long corporate careers. We've seen how internships can be valuable or they could be a waste of time. Let's make sure it's not a waste of time.
Yes.
So there is a motion and a second. My comments are just that, which is I think we've had a thoughtful discussion. This directs village staff to go more formally, bring this back to the board, and then we'll have to talk about the budgets. We like the program. Let's figure out if we could do it this year. If not, it has to be something that has to be done in a future budget year. It's pretty straightforward ask of the village staff. There's a motion and a second, correct?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I move to recommend
No.
the village,
It's already been motioned. We're just ready to call for the roll.
oh, okay.
Do you have any comments you want to add? Or you,
I like it.
okay.
And it just seems in what's in there, it's already in there about it being valuable work, there being accountability. And for all the internship programs that I've been a part of, regardless of which side I was on, they were very good, they were very informative, very helpful to the employers. I think this is going to be first class, I'm sure of it.
Yep. With that, call the roll, please.
Trustee Milani?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet? Trustee Leaflet? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Proceeding to number 6, ordinance amending appendices A and B to ordinance number 5968-3rd Amendment.
George, sounds complicated. Why don't you break it down simply for what we're doing, and then we'll tie it back to the comments that were raised by Trustee Milani.
Sure. So we're doing a couple things on this salary ordinance amendment, and for the sake of the new elected officials, this was something. The salary ordinance was something that was put into place in 2020, and what it does is it establishes all of the different salaries and their ranges. So in this situation, we were looking to do a couple of things. The first couple of them were cleanups. Remove the assistant to the village manager, and in that case, we would remove that, and instead, it would be the addition of an outreach coordinator. We'd remove the 2 existing grades for interns in our part-time salary ordinance, and instead, we would just have 1 intern grade at 500. And then, well, we remove the IT office coordinator. It's a part-time position that is not filled right now, and that would just be a cleanup. Like I said, the new office, the outreach coordinator's position would replace the assistant to the village manager position. It's the same grade, grade 8. And it's really, at this point, it's really about rebuilding a lot of the relationships that we know we have to work on as far as our intergovernmental, especially. When the state of Illinois did a $45 billion capital plan, the village didn't get anything out of that. And so we really have to work cooperatively with our local officials and our state officials to help us with those, capital funds and to have that relationship. And that's really going to be one of the primary focuses of this outreach coordinator.
Before we have any other, thanks, George. Is there a motion and a second so we can continue the discussion with the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Long?
I move to recommend the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending Appendices A and B to Ordinance number 5968, Third Amendment.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas?
just a quick thing on the educational requirements. Are there any specific, I don't know if I'm just not seeing them really quick? Qualifications, bachelor's degree, minimum. Okay, thank you. Answered my own question.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
it looks like there's just one position you're listing for the internship program, so we're just going to have an internship. It's not going to be graduate or undergraduate.
Exactly, right.
But I don't remember ever creating the other internship positions. Do we have to remove something we didn't create?
Those were, they have been in the salary ordinance for forever. We never funded the program.
Okay, I couldn't remember if we had entered them in or not, okay. So the outreach coordinator, I mean, if we're looking to possibly look at budget options for the internship program, over half of the responsibilities and job functions that you have listed are around the internship, which if we're going to hold off on the internship and possibly budget this for next year, should we maybe also hold off on the outreach coordinator? Because this is a $79,000 to $100,000 permit position, right? So, the question is, why are we doing this outside of the budget cycle again?
There's a priority right now. We have to, even though the salary is between 79 and 100, we're going to be seeking millions in grants, federal, state, and unfortunately, and we know that there is going to be another capital grant coming from the state. The last major capital program, the 45 billion, Orland Hills, a much smaller community than us, got 18 million, and the village didn't get anything. So we really have to, so this pays for itself just through the relationships that we're going to build to enhance that ability.
Yeah, no, I understand that. The entire southwest suburbs got pretty much nothing, not just Orland Park. It was pretty rough everywhere, right? But the reason I'm looking at this as well is like there's not one mention of anything that has to do with grants in the job description, right? So if that's the function, then we need to actually define that. And a lot of the other job functions are very communications department centric. Again, a lot of it was around the internship, which I believe should fall into the people that want to be leaders inside the organization, not one person. Because I think our staff participates in a lot of these job functions on a day-to-day basis. And, if this is the facilitate the work of the mentors, as this mentioned, I think, we should definitely hold off on it. The other thing is it says it provides support to the Citizens Academy. If we're stretched so thin to the point that we need a person to provide support to the Citizens Academy, why are we doing it? I thought the purpose was to have a bunch of people from the department be able to participate that and give their point of view and objective oversight into what a department does, right? So, I mean, one person doesn't get a very broad view of what's going on in the organization. I think we have a lot of staff that have stepped up and shown that they're leaders through our leadership programs, and they'd be happy to participate in that academy instead of having a person. And I think they'd also be happy to work in the internship program. So I'm not sure if we need a person dedicated to it. And like I said, it also, it seems to overlap a lot of positions, including like some of the things that the mayor's assistant does. And I guess one last question. We're in the board meeting, we're talking about a public relations service contract. Is this tied to that at all, or is this completely separate? Because it seems, again, public relations, communications department, outreach coordinator, it seems like a lot of overlap to me.
Yeah, and of course, there's going to be some overlap between our communications division, the professional services from communications, and the outreach coordinator. But really, it's really about how we engage our residents, how we engage other stakeholders, and we have to do a much better job at that. If we hope to really quite honestly, rebuild relationships with outside entities. So it's not going to be just one person that's going to do that. It's going to be a team.
Trustee Leafblad.
And, my research shows indicates that the coordinator was being hired again as kind of coordinator. So instead of different, like, division heads or department heads, I mean, to take on additional tasks, in terms of communicating with the educational institution or providing information, because most institutions do other paperwork and follow up there and requirements. And I think that it is useful to have somebody enrolled as the person who does all of that work, so that the department has can be focused on expressing their interest in having an intern, what kind of qualifications they would expect their intern to have, and what kind of learning opportunities they provide interns, without having additional concerns that come with, interacting with any kind of educational institution, to create improved relationships. So I do think it's an important position to have in terms, just for that purpose.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Call the motion?
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
No.
Trustee Leafblat?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Motion passes. The final number 8 is agenda initiative.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I move to postpone this item to a later date of the next committee of the whole, as the agenda initiatives originator is attending a family funeral.
Is there a second?
Second.
Before we, let's call the roll to table this.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Healy is not present. Trustee Lawrence?
No.
Trustee Lawler?
No.
Trustee Leafblat?
I will agree with them if we know that we're going to discuss all of the proposals.
Trustee Leafblad, we need a yes or no on the motion to table it right now.
Okay, pardon me. No.
Mayor Dodge?
No.
So much for
Vote
civility.
fails.
George and/or Mr. Walsh, how do you want to bring up discussing this issue?
So Trustee Healy sent me a request, and it's attached to the Legistar item, and it's referred to as the Healy question. And he asked me to have the village attorney review a relationship between the mayor and Milliman, who is one of many contractors that IPBC, Illinois Public Benefit Cooperative, utilizes At the last village board meeting, the village board authorized staff to get proposals. We didn't do any contracts, we just did proposals, and those are in the work right now. Per the village code, no staff time or financial resources can be used if an individual trustee wants to do that. There's this agenda initiative process. And so that's on the agenda right now as the agenda initiative process. This was sent to the full board, it was placed on the agenda, and then Trustee Lawler then submitted his own initiative to review the past Horton contracts. And so that's where we're at right now.
Mr. Walsh, just to make sure that everybody understands, under the rules for the board, if an individual trustee would like an item discussed, they're allowed to bring it up as a member initiative if 2 other trustees agree. Is that correct?
If it takes 3 trustees to move forward with the board initiative.
And if they do agree with the board initiative, then basically that's telling the village board to go ahead and prepare this as a formal item to be brought back for consideration and/or action, correct?
And it would authorize staff and village attorney to do whatever investigation is necessary to bring it back before the board.
Okay, given that it's me, am I allowed to speak on this?
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of things, just so we can set the facts straight. I left Milliman in the year 2018. I left this village board in the year 2021. Sometime in 2022, a firm I had never heard of sought actuarial help from one of the world's largest independent actuarial firms, for which I hadn't had a relationship on something on the order of 7 or 8 years. So, Mr. Walsh, knowing that, is there anything under Illinois law, broadly defined, Cook County regulations and/or local ordinances that would require me to have said anything with this as a potential conflict of interest?
Now, based on that, assuming all that's true, and I have no reason to believe that it isn't
You
true.
can check my LinkedIn profile if you'd like.
There isn't any ongoing employment relationship that you had with this particular vendor at the time that any vote was taken on it, or any vote that you took on it anyway. There is no obligation to disclose it under any state law or under our village code.
Okay? So then, if I'm not mistaken, and make sure we have this precisely right, the real question before the board is, do 2 trustees agree with Trustee Healy that this should be a formal initiative? Correct?
Correct.
Any comments or questions from the trustees?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
probably a lot of this could have been avoided, and it didn't even need to be an agenda item if I think you guys just got together and talked about it. I didn't think this needed to be an agenda item. So I'm, first of all, confused as to why it's here as an agenda item. So, I don't think Bill was trying to create a controversy. He came up with something. I mean, what I read is if, maybe we got together and just did what he asked really quick, this wouldn't be an issue today. So,
Any other comments or questions?
I do have just a quick comment.
Trustee Leafblad?
So, I don't understand your timing correctly. You were employed by the entity, you terminated your employment, and then you were a trustee, and then you terminated your time as a trustee, you stepped down as a trustee, you were no longer a trustee. And then after you were a trustee, the board at that time had rules regarding the entity that you worked for prior.
If that's a question, the answer is yes. Or actually, no, wait, I'm sorry, Trustee Leafblad. George, if I'm not mistaken, the insurance carrier separately engaged Milliman, correct?
Correct. So the only engagement that the village had was with the Illinois Public Benefit Cooperative, and they use many consultants. That's their business model is this full transparency for all of the public sector organizations that are part of it. And what they do is, well, for example, one of their consultants is the Sickage Group. And that's the same group that we utilize for our internal audit. So there are multiple consultants, one of those being Milliman. And obviously the village does not control who IPBC uses for their consultants.
Thank you. I guess I don't have any other comments on this unless I'm happy to answer any questions from any members of the board on this one. I just want to make sure that timeline is crystalline in everybody's minds. Well, I guess the question is, if there's a motion that's been proposed coming out of the member initiative from Trustee Healy, is there a motion and a second as specified in Legistar? Okay, I think, can we move on, Mr. Walsh?
No one's presented a motion, we move on.
Related to this was communications to the village manager from Trustee Lawler.
Yes, and Trustee Lawler provided a follow-up to that. It had to do with the village's relationship with Horton. He specified a number of questions that he wanted it appeared that this was going to be tacked on to the Trustee Healy investigation. Is that right, Trustee Lawler?
Correct.
Trustee Lawler? Hang on.
Mr. Chairman, but we're not.
I'm sorry, Trustee Lawler asked to be recognized just before you did. Trustee Lawler?
Yes. So when this was brought onto the agenda, I was concerned because during my campaign, it was brought to my attention that the village may have been overpaying for our insurance. And so we started doing some FOIA requests with some people on our campaign, and a lot of things were denied. We want to talk about transparency. Well, we want to get to the bottom of, was the village transparent? Was there any conflict of interest? Why did we go with a more expensive insurance bid? We ask the questions of, if the contract with Horton was, so good for the village, why are we hiding it in FOIA request? So, why did it take the investigative efforts of Orland Park for All to uncover this sweetheart deal? 2, why did the village deny the correspondence records? Who decided not to pursue the IPBC proposal? There are at least a dozen other health insurance brokers in Orland Park. If the concern was to work with an Orland Park business, were these other local businesses offered the chance at being awarded an extra $3.8 million contract? And finally, the question I had is, if government cooperative agreements are not ideal, why does the village continue to participate in a government cooperative for property casualty insurance as recommended by Horton Insurance?
Trustee Milani, you want to be recognized?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, since we weren't moving forward with the trustee initiative, why we're continuing. I mean, you can continue all you want. I was just wondering.
No, Trustee Milani, it's a good question. I guess, George, at the basis of what Trustee Lawler's asking for is a lot of information. Can you provide that to Trustee Lawler and the full Board of Trustees?
Absolutely. Staff and I will work to get you those questions.
So, all right, then Trustee Lawler, does that address the issue, if you got the information you're seeking?
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
I think there's no motion. This issue is decided. There's an information request of the village staff that, George, you'll get it to the entire board. And I think with that, this agenda is finished, correct, Trustee?
That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry, my fault. Are there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board?
Mr. Mayor, as a procedural matter, could we please have Trustee Leafblad explain why she is participating remotely?
Yes, I'm going to do that. Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad?
Yes, I had full employment surgery on my left knee last Thursday, and they not really in a position to attend the meeting right now. So in terms of the point of recovery on that, and also the variety of medication I'm taking. So I really hope to be the second meeting, but this one was a little too close to my surgery date.
Get well soon. Hope you recover.
Wish you well.
The entertain a
Go ahead.
sorry.
Comments or anything?
Do we want comments at the committee of the whole? We'll just, what I would recommend to the board is that we end this meeting. We'll take 5 minutes for the residents. We'll be back at it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a motion, a second? Call the roll, please. Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet? Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy not present. Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
7:50.
We'll see you in 5 minutes.